All right. Good. Let me center myself a bit more. Okay, so forgive me. I have not done this in a long time. Recently, with the world being closed and having a lot more spare time, I've decided to take my interests and kind of make it like share it with you guys, because I have a brain that's like a sponge and I soak up all of this information. So I really love the paranormal. I love anything spooky, anything like that. So I thought it would be really fitting for my first video to talk about the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine. So this video is called The Warrens, Two Perspectives, One Goal. So if you guys have seen any scary movies in the last 7 years, the first one was made in 2013 by James Wan. Ed and Lorraine Warren were actually demonologists that helped people in their homes when they felt that there was a malevolent force. They actually did not charge for their work. Lorraine was a self-proclaimed clairvoyant, and Ed was, he started a life in the Roman Catholic Church. However, he did not continue it, and he was mostly known as an artist. And so, residing as a couple, they lived in Connecticut in the United States, and they did much traveling with their cases. They actually created something called the New England Society for Psychic Research. So Lorraine was not just extremely in tune with herself, she was actually able to contact people on the other side. She claimed that she was clairvoyant and that she was psychic. Establishing the New England Society for Psychic Research with her husband, Ed. The films depict what they create, or what they interacted, and what they, their files. They were very good at keeping track of everything. They recorded things. They had film footage. So Ed and Lorraine may sound familiar to you if you've watched any of the horror movies. And a lot of these movies have non-fictional movie magic in them, but Ed and Lorraine were actual real-life people. And so this video is just going to kind of touch on a couple of the more popular movies, cases. I am a huge James Wan fan. The Conjuring is one of my favorite movies. I love the Conjuring universe. So they began their investigations back in 1952, and that's when they created their society. They have claimed to have aided in well over 10,000 investigations in their career. So Ed and Lorraine were allegedly one of the first demonologists or people of that nature to investigate the Amityville haunting or the Amityville horror movies. Sometimes the investigation risks the lives of those involved, so quite frequently police and ambulance and often a lot of help from the church was involved. As the majority of the investigations involve haunted or cursed items, they believe that trapping the entity inside the object would cease the haunting as long as the cursed item remained safe and under a watchful eye. So, after many years of investigations and cases, the Warrens had accumulated enough to open a small museum in their home in Connecticut. One of the most reported haunted items in this museum, and what The Conjuring is mostly based around, is this doll, the Annabelle doll. Now I'm sure you're familiar with the doll from the movie, however the real doll looks nothing like what's depicted in the films. It's actually a Raggedy Ann doll. So if you don't know what that looks like, just Google that. So yeah, it holds no resemblance at all to the doll in the movie, which I find is interesting. You know, James Wan, he's very a fan of creepy dolls and puppets, you know, Saw and that kind of thing, so it's cool. The doll apparently was a conduit for a spirit of a girl named Annabelle Higgins, who reportedly used the doll in a satanic ritual. So it was a satanic sacrifice. The demon would do anything for a human vessel, so she is now kept in a cabinet made from wood, made out of leftover wood from a church. There's also, it's like fireproof glass, and it's completely encased. It's really, like, you can Google it. It's like this very big wooden cabinet, very ominous looking. There's a sign that's like, do not open. Yeah, she's a real thing, guys. She's real. The Warrens Museum, like I said, is full of a lot of conduits and things that were used in any ritualistic, satanic, occult practice. So once a week they get a priest to come in and bless the home, the Warrens, any visitors of the museum. Now, Lorraine unfortunately passed away in 2019, and since she's been passed, the museum has not been open. So don't know what's on the go with that. I would love to go to it. I would love to see it someday if it would be reopened. Like I said, the Warrens were known to aid in the Amityville hauntings. Another very popular one, the Haunting of the Perrons, which is the Conjuring. And then the Enfield poltergeist hauntings in England. The Haunting of Shan Johnson in 1981. The Snedeker House, sorry, I may have butchered that, in which the film The Haunting of Connecticut is loosely based around. Yeah, so that movie that came out forever ago, Haunting in Connecticut, is based on an Ed and Lorraine case. So that's loosely based on The Haunting of Union Cemetery, in which Ed has actually caught on film a white lady just there. Which is pretty interesting. Of course, back in the day, the Warren family faced some backlash. Ed, apparently, the actor, I'm sorry, Patrick, his name is completely escaping my mind right now. He was nothing like that actor. Apparently, he was a real... he was often reported to be physically, but more so verbally abusive to Lorraine. There's been times that she'd been in the middle of, you know, her babbling, as he referred to, and he would slap her across the face just to, like, okay, you're back, you're here now. Like, it was 1950s, 60s when they were doing this, so, you know, it was no proof. I mean, Lorraine never ever spoke anything but highly of her husband, so. They faced a lot of flack for being fakes or phonies. They often helped families due to Lorraine's giant loving soul. Like I said before, they did not charge for their services, and they ended up actually having a daughter, Judy, which often made Lorraine think and act more maternally after she had her daughter. Ed passed away at the age of 79 in 2006, leaving the lovely Lorraine to continue their legacy and making sure the museum remains blessed, locked up, and safe. Now, like I said, it's been closed since she's been passed, but, so, I just have some notes here. So, like I said, a lot of people didn't believe in the power of their cursed items. A lot of people especially didn't believe in the Annabelle thing, so, you're free to wander around the room when it's open, but they are very keen on you not touching anything and kind of not interacting with anything and like kind of taunting anything. There's a very popular story of a young man and his girlfriend that went to the museum. Rumor has it he walked right up to the Annabelle enclosure, looked, sneered in, tapped on the glass, and kind of just snickered and, you know, was like, what are you going to do to me? You're just a stupid doll and you're stuck behind some glass, right? So, he immediately, after they were done, they finished up their visit. He left Two of them got on his motorcycle. He lost control of the motorcycle. It crashed into a tree. He was killed instantly. She survived. So, Ed and Lorraine were very keen on recording their experiences for the world to see because of all of the flack they faced for being phonies. Lorraine believed the Amityville haunting was remnants of the suffering there, which left the property with sinister and evil spirits. In 1974, a family of 4 moved into the Amityville home. George Lutz, claiming to be possessed by the devil, murdered his entire family while they were asleep in their beds. He claimed the voices in the house told him to do it. This was the most noted case and was helped raise awareness to demonology and possessions and things like that. And Lorraine actually claimed this was one of the hauntings that affected her the most. As I keep referring to, they did not charge for their investigation, so a lot of times what they did as they got more noticed was they made money from writing books, doing tours, traveling to different colleges, and Ed actually had made a couple of box office paintings. What he would do allegedly was, once he heard a rumor or something about the home being haunted, he would paint the home or the property and give it to the owner, kind of like as his like, so you have a little bit of a knock, you know, in the night. And that being said, they often spoke of the 3 stages of possession. This is visited in that scene in The Conjuring. You have oppression. It begins with a feeling. You'll hear tapping, often in times of 3. Things will move. It's your first inclination that something's going on. A lot of times these spirits will pick somebody that's weaker, whether, you know, emotionally, physically, whatever. Obsession is the second stage. Changes in behavior, you know, voice might be a little weird, they may sleep all the time, just, they're different. And then finally, possession is the final stage. The entity has fully enveloped the human as their vessel. So, another case that recently brought investigation to their investigation, was in 1971, the case in Rhode Island. Yes, The Conjuring. The parent family had moved into a home on a cursed land, who was allegedly owned by a witch named Bathsheba, who sacrificed her firstborn child. She claimed her love of Satan and then hung herself on the property. And one of the final cases they had a part in was during the 80s. It's a murder case in Connecticut in which Ernie Johnson claimed that he was possessed by the devil. So this is what the basis of the third Conjuring is going to be about. The Warrens tried to actually appeal to the court saying, hey, you know, this man was under, you know, demon, whatever you want to call it. But they were like, hey, this don't fly, he's gone. And Johnson was jailed and convicted of manslaughter. So like I said, Lorraine passed away in 2019. She's actually made a few brief appearances on TV, in documentary series. There's lots of videos of her talking to James Wan about the film, and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool, like behind the scenes footage of her. Lots of quotes and things like that from her. One is, she said, the easiest way to sit on the edge of the bed, she explained to a European newspaper. She often enjoyed to simply wander the haunted homes and dwellings and to just concentrate on mostly the bedrooms. You know, when you go to bed at night, how all those thoughts go through your mind? That's all recorded. You think these things out. What you've experienced, you go to bed and it's played out for you again. She's also claimed to say that the Conjuring movie is very accurate. She's also claimed to say that when you give something recognition, when you go into a place where a haunting phenomenon is happening and you give it that recognition, you give it energy, and it can do whatever it wants with that. And sometimes I have to make I make the sign of the cross and say, in Jesus' name, go back to wherever you've come from. That's usually when I get very overwhelmed. A lot of people have compared the Enfield poltergeist as the mirror reflection to the Amityville horror, as the Enfield poltergeist took place in England, whereas Amityville took place in New York. With regards to proof, with well documented, it's considered by far the most interesting cases. Police were involved, reported all of the strange happenings. The daughters claimed that their dressers moved on their own, the chairs moved on their own, and the police saw all this. It was the first time that it ever happened, and the police had nothing to do with it. They completely drew out, and that's how the Warrens became involved with something that was actually across the sea. It was one of the first times they ever left the United States for a investigation. So, speaking on the Conjuring universe, it spans roughly over 40 years. It begins, like I said, in 1952 with The Nun, that's in Romania. Then we have Annabelle Creation, Annabelle, The Conjuring. James Wan said that he created The Conjuring because he wanted to create the best horror film of all time. And I totally agree. Then after that, we have Annabelle Comes Home, The Conjuring 2, and finally, coming in 2021, The Conjuring 3. So, my lovelies, a couple questions. What's with the doll? What's with this Annabelle entity? Why do people react to this doll so much? It's just always something that's kind of, stuck in my brain a little bit. I will leave you with one of my all-time favorite quotes, appropriately from Ed Warren himself, and that is, "The devil exists, God exists, and for us, as mortals, our very destiny hinges upon which one we follow."